Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Here to talk all things hockey are your hosts, Brad Crisco, Ryan Hanna, and Evan Lobsinger.
I'm going to look like an idiot this episode. I usually only sound like one, but I'm going to look like one this episode because I'm wearing an oversized jersey. But it's worth it because these Grand Rapids Flying Toasters jerseys are absolutely unreal.
They go hard.
we were talking to someone we were interviewing, and you'll hear that over the All-Star break, but we were saying like the juxtaposition between these giant hockey players who are trying to punch you in the face and they're also wearing these baby blue jerseys with flying toasters on them is absolutely hysterical.
I can't even believe a professional hockey team did this, but I'm so glad they did.
There's a lot of good like giveaways and theme nights and promotions across the NHL, but the AHL does it different, and Grand Rapids is like top tier.
They 100% leaned into it because they changed the little, it says like home and away on the scoreboard. They changed it to Toasters versus Belleville.
Yeah.
They called themselves Toaster Nation.
Fly Toasters Fly.
Yeah, Fly Toasters Fly. Just a masterclass in leaning into the ridiculousness of it all.
Yeah, it was a great weekend to be there, I'll tell you that. And while we were in Grand Rapids, Detroit had themselves a great little stretch there. And that's the only Detroit sport we're going to talk about is the Red Wings, because I don't really feel like crying on the Winged Wheel podcast right now. Brad, I will say the only thing I'll say about it is I commend you because you have shown up to this podcast multiple times after a devastating Bills loss, and you've actually kept your composure. I think I texted you, when does the hurting stop? And what was your answer?
I said, I'll let you know. Haven't got there yet. Going on 36 years now.
Thank goodness for hockey in Detroit and Grand Rapids, because that's going to keep us going today. Folks, welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast, here to talk to you about all things Detroit Red Wings hockey, Grand Rapids Flying Toasters hockey, the world of the NHL, and lots more. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Hanna.
I'm Brad Crisco.
And I'm Evan.
On this episode of the Winged Wheel Podcast, we have a lot to talk to you about. Detroit played 2 games, 2 wins for them, one against Philadelphia and one against Vegas, 2 presumptive playoff teams or playoff competitive teams. Additionally, there's a ton of storylines in there, from Larkin to Copp to Raymond and everyone else. Really, really eventful games. Lyon as well. We'll give you some updates on Patrick Kane, Detroit's upcoming schedule before the All-Star break. We're going to have a conversation about Moritz Seider because that became a topic leading into the weekend, and one that I'm pretty passionate about, and some other Red Wings players. We'll give you a recap of Winged Wheel Podcast Night with the Grand Rapids Griffins, not just talking about ourselves, but talking about the 2 games that we saw, the takeaways on the Griffins players from that weekend, some of the highlights, including Simon Edvinsson, the goon, getting into a scrap thanks to Jonatan Berggren, and Edvinsson and Berggren were hilarious in the room after, so we'll let you know what happened there. And then news from across the NHL. Gallagher had one of the most suspendable hits I've ever seen. And then, believe it or not, the Department of Player Safety, in our opinion, botched that one. So we'll be talking about that and more from across the NHL before overtime. Before all that, I want to let you know that Winged Wheel Podcast Night at the LCA, the second one of the season, is on Saturday, March 2nd. It's our last Winged Wheel Podcast Night at the LCA of this season, and it's going to be a great game. It's the Florida Panthers rematch game. So big divisional rivalry, big playoff implications as they play an Atlantic foe. What Winged Wheel Podcast Night at the LCA is a partnered event between us and the Detroit Red Wings, where you get tickets not only to the Red Wings game, but you also get access to a pre-game live recording of the Winged Wheel Podcast. Right before the game, it's going to feature us and, more importantly, special guest Ken Daniels. Other special guests will be there as well. It's a great time. So you get a ticket to the game, a ticket to the live show as well. You get a special co-branded Detroit Red Wings and Winged Wheel Podcast hat. They're limited edition. We're not allowed to sell them anywhere else, so the only way to get these hats is from this event. It's going to be a different colorway from the different ones, the caps that you've seen at previous events. We'll have a black one for you if you want to choose one of the old styles, and the new style will be there as well, so stay tuned on what that looks like. There's going to be an opportunity to buy food and drinks. Your tickets are all in Winged Wheel Podcast specific seating sections. The gondola is completely sold out, but there's still upper and lower bowl tickets. A portion of the proceeds from every ticket sold benefits the Jamie Daniels Foundation, which is the most important part of all of this. And your tickets have a discount built into them. So Winged Wheel Podcast Night at the LCA. Link in the description to get your tickets today. Only the first 400 get the special Red Wings Winged Wheel Podcast co-branded hat. wingedwheelpodcast.com/Red Wings, or a link in the description. Again, only the first 400 tickets. All right, let's start with the Red Wings here. And I know I've said this before, but January is a complete inverse of December. I don't care about process versus results. I don't care about who deserved to win what game. Detroit has taken an insane amount of points compared to what might have been predicted for them. I think they're at 19 points of a possible 24 through the month, and that is just absolutely absurd.
It's even more absurd when you look at the actual NHL standings. We blinked, and I think every game over the last 4 days has went the way of the Red Wings. You know, we were having so much fun in Grand Rapids. You know, we're paying attention to the Red Wings game as much as we can before we caught up on them when we got home. And I noticed the Red Wings were in 8th, the second wild card spot. And then I had to do a double take when I noticed the 5-point gap between them and 9th.
Yeah.
When the hell did that happen? My God, like, tremendous. Don't get me wrong. I'm not upset at all. But that must be an incredible stretch of luck for not only the Wings to take their points, every team chasing them must have had a catastrophic week.
And, you know, not to say that they're out of it, but Detroit is now sitting at 57 points in 49 games. It's a .582 points percentage. And they are in a playoff spot by points percentage because behind them, the Islanders have a .531, the Penguins have a .554, the Devils have a .543, and the Capitals have a .543. After that, you drop off to .490 with Buffalo and Montreal, and I think they're out of it. Any one of the Islanders, Penguins, Devils, or Capitals could get back in it with a good run, and some have games in hand. So yeah, if Pittsburgh wins all 3 of their games in hand and wins all of them in regulation, then they'd pass Detroit. But this is a little bit of a buffer. And it's kind of, we focus so much on Toronto ahead of Detroit and Tampa Bay to see if they can claim that, you know, divisional seed. But it's great news. If you can't get the room above you to work out the way you need with those games, it's great news for, at this time of year, the other wild card contenders to start to falter.
And it's another bonus for the Red Wings that the teams immediately chasing them for that spot are in the Metro, because by points and points percentage, the Red Wings are ahead of 3rd in the Metro, which is the Flyers. So right now, Pittsburgh would have a better chance of taking that playoff spot.
You have to win your own games, just one game at a time. You focus on improving the process and hoping the results follow. Of course, having Alex Lyon doing what he's doing helps, of course. But if you want to be where Detroit is in terms of what they can ice in terms of a roster, it was always going to be this wild card fight at best. And with that, you need some luck. And that's what Detroit's getting. And it's not a knock on Detroit because they're doing their part in a big way in January. But that is a really, really good stretch for Detroit there. So don't get too focused looking ahead at Toronto and Tampa Bay, who has now remembered that they're Tampa Bay. They're 8-2-0 in their last 10. It's everyone in that wild card mix. Great news for Detroit. They started out this little stretch here with a win over the Philadelphia Flyers, a 3-0 shutout for Alex Lyon, who continues to be Alex Lyon. 3-0 where Detroit had 17 shots on goal, 30 shots against. So the Flyers will be not thrilled with the fact that they couldn't beat Lyon, and Detroit should be thanking him, but they also got their goals. And what was also a chippy game. You'll take the points, #JustWin. You continue that MO, and that seems like a very January 2024 Detroit Red Wings game.
Just win, baby. Now, the breakdown on this game, I'm just going to skip for the most part. Just win, baby. 3 goals, outstanding goaltending. That's a recipe for success. It's not exactly the most sustainable recipe for success, but hey, if Alex Lyon's going to keep doing it, nobody here is complaining.
Larkin scored his 20th goal. It came from Lucas Raymond. It was on the rebound, so Larkin is another 20-goal scorer on the season. And Mo Seider, the conversations about Mo Seider online were coming into that game. It was funny that Mo Seider scored. And he scored off of a fortunate deflection, but you'll take it. That one also from Lucas Raymond. And then Andrew Copp scored a shorthanded goal to make it 3-0 off a great play from Michael Rasmussen, protecting the puck and dogging it down low. Setting up Copp in front for the shorthanded goal. Copp scored his 9th. I believe it was the intermission interview where they asked Copp, what does it mean to score? Because that was his 100th goal of his career. They said, what does that mean for you to score your 100th goal? And immediately Copp said, doesn't mean shit. I have to play better. It doesn't mean shit. And I was like, you know what? I think Andrew Copp's been playing better and better lately, especially in 2024. We've talked about it. He didn't have a good start to the year, and he didn't have a good really middle to the year in terms of output on the ice. And it had the same energy as a while back when Michael Rasmussen, they asked him what his New Year's resolution was, and he said, play better hockey, or whatever that was. Absolute same energy. And to Copp's credit, he's been producing a lot more. He's looked a lot better out there.
Yeah, the bar was pretty low from the first season and a half of his Red Wings tenure. And his game's still not without its flaws, but he is what he is. Like, the line of him, Rasmussen, and Fischer, their shutdown metrics have been phenomenal.
Unreal.
They are a true lockdown line right now. So any offense they're producing is a bonus because they're providing value even without it.
Fischer and Rasmussen are such little water bugs out there, and they're such a pain in the ass to play against. Like, they get down low, and they make defenders' lives a living hell trying to get out of the zone. So it's great to see that line have success, and they've been contributing almost regularly now. So the Red Wings really need something like that.
Calling them little is like calling my dogs little.
Well, they're like little water bugs in the sense of like the universe is big.
Yeah. Okay, Ilya. Something else about that game, Klim Kostin dropped the gloves with Delorier, I think it was, and he's a tough customer, Delorier. He got a couple good shots in on Kostin. Kostin was able to feed some back. But that was an important example of why Kostin is good for this team in terms of not getting bullied, because Mo Seider laid a couple big hits that turned into a boarding penalty. I don't really know if I agree with it, but a couple hits that turned a little ugly. It was just one of those plays where I don't think the player did the best job protecting themselves. One lost his footing, and Seider was just already committing to the hit. Anyways, Philly started running around. It was Delorier, it was Hathaway, Sealer, whoever. They were looking to fight everyone. Like, it was getting ridiculous out there. And having Kostin as that release valve so that they could fight someone, and it wasn't, Dylan Larkin, or they weren't going after Lucas Raymond or whoever else, that to me is important. It was very old school hockey, rock'em sock'em, when they both willingly took their helmets off before.
Hell yeah.
They took the 2-minute unsportsmanlike minors, and they agreed to just do it. That was, I know keeping your helmet on is safer, but the goon in me was like, oh, absolutely.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Yes. I was listening to the details here are sparse because it's my brain, but I was listening to some podcast. I actually don't remember which one. And I actually don't remember who said this.
Evan, are we sure you didn't just think this?
This is what you guys are gonna vet the credibility of this, but forget what I just said.
Okay.
They said that Klim Kostin is one of, if not the toughest guys in the NHL. And apparently he trains in the off season with professional MMA fighters.
Yeah, he does.
So he doesn't look like that big strapping goon that would just pump your eyes shut. But man, he is scary. And when he grabs guys like Delorier and just kind of has his way, it's wild to see.
It goes to show you how tough some people are in the NHL, because Radko Gudas, for example, lit up Kostin in that big hit. And I'm like, if I tried to lay that hit on someone Kostin's size, I would die.
You would literally die,
yeah.
Yes.
Anyhow, it came to be a chippy game, and Detroit held on 3-0 for the win. And you think they go up against a team. I know the Flyers haven't been as hot, but the Flyers are a playoff team. They're in that divisional seed right now, and they pulled out the win against them, which is great because the next game they had was against the Vegas Golden Knights, who, again, they aren't playing as well as they were. They're missing Jack Eichel. They're looking to regain some form. It's not like they've been doing poorly. They're second in the Pacific right now, but they also got the win against Vegas. That game was a huge one. That was the one we had to go back and catch up on because we were watching the Flying Toasters that night. But Dylan Larkin scored his 21st goal of the season, and that was the 200th goal of his career. Beautiful play. Raymond had to brink it back to Larkin, who scored. Raymond immediately went and got the puck from the net, which you love to see. It almost flew by for Larkin. 200th goal, 11-game point streak. That's 11 straight games. And I think in that stretch, Larkin played some hockey, which I would say, he would probably say wasn't his best hockey. A little bit, undisciplined hockey with the puck or whatever. And he's on an 11-game point streak.
Yeah, undisciplined hockey sometimes leads to offense. That's why I do nothing but cherry pick in beer league.
Brad trying to give me an aneurysm over here. And I do think Larkin has looked a lot better too. Whenever people are like, oh, Larkin's not the superstars we had in the past, most nights, even though we talk a lot about Mo Seider and, the impact of Alex DeBrincat coming in, or if Lucas Raymond's on a hot streak or whatever, Dylan Larkin is still Detroit's most important player unless Alex Lyon's doing Alex Lyon things.
When people say like, "Oh, he's not the superstar of the past," okay, name me those people. They say Steve Yzerman, Nick Lidstrom. It's like, okay, those are two of the best players to ever play the game. Like, pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah.
Dylan Larkin has had an impressive career up to this point, and he continues to really push the naysayers who say, "Oh, he's not an elite or a true number one center." He's having a phenomenal season at this point, and even though there's been some slight hiccups with having the puck on his stick lately, but this point streak really reiterates it to me that he continues to improve his game.
Yeah, if your version of poor hockey means you're scoring 21 goals, you're on an 11-game point streak, I'll take that as a Red Wings fan for sure. Jake Walman made it 2-0 off a absolute piss missile. It was a cannon of a shot on the left side there. I think Ken called it a bullet on the broadcast, and that was accurate. That made him the first Red Wings defenseman, Ken said, with 10 or more goals since Mike Green in 2016-2017.
He's 8th in the league for defensive scoring right now. Goals, not points.
Yeah.
Filip Hronek never had 10 goals.
I don't know if Phil Hronek hit the net 10 times in his season in Detroit.
He's too busy doing finger guns because he was a sheriff.
I'm happy for Hronek that he dialed it in and can now hit the 4x6 in Vancouver. But yeah, there's no chance he was getting 10 goals in Detroit with his spray and pray method.
Even Hronek this year has 3 goals with Vancouver.
That is insane.
He had 9 with Detroit the year he got traded and didn't score in the 4 games he was in Vancouver for the rest of that season. And going backwards, 5, 2, and then 9 the year he played 65 games for Detroit in 2019-2020. So no.
That's wild.
And that's it. Brad's not wrong. Hronek, the exciting part about Hronek was how hard of a shot he had, and we thought he had an offense on the left side, and then immediate disappointment when he just could never corral that thing. You could never bring that in.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Did he not register the hardest ever in-game shot in the NHL this year?
Was it?
I think one of his 3 goals in Vancouver.
Oh, yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
He can blast that thing.
Yeah.
I'm surprised he hasn't split the puck in half or put it through the glass more. But yeah, Red Wings fans will remember. Hronek just couldn't hit the net. It was so frustrating.
And Walman can, and now he has 10 goals.
10 goals. The Mike Green comparison, I know it's not the exact same game, but you do love, like, that was an exciting player to have, even if it was late in Mike Green's career, and to have Jake Walman doing similar things, but younger in his career, that's a good sign.
He's not all the way there yet, though. Evan and I were in the building for a Mike Green hat trick.
That is true.
You heard that, Jake. We need the Hattie. The next Red Wings goal after Vegas tied it, and that Vegas tying it was happening at the same time as Belleville tying Grand Rapids, and I was like, oh, God, they're both doing it at the same time. Joe Veleno scored in front. Mo Seider made a good pass from the point on the power play. Veleno was trying to center it to DeBrincat, and the puck ended up in the net. That was Mo Seider's 100th career assist, which you're talking about milestones, and there was a lot of them. Like in this episode, we talked about Copp's 100th goal, Larkin's 200th goal, Mo's 100th career assist. I think Prashant Iyer tweeted out that he's the 7th fastest Red Wings defenseman to reach the 100 career assist mark, which was the timing is all really great for a Mo Seider, in defense of Mo Seider episode.
And I think that stat included veterans who came over from a trade or free agent. So it can't be many ahead of him from the start of their career.
Yeah. So good on Mo there. And then in the third period, Andrew Copp scored again his 10th goal of the season. So that's another double-digit goal scorer for the Red Wings. And we just got done talking about Andrew Copp and how he has been playing a lot better. That's consecutive games with goals for him from Michael Rasmussen. But the MVP of the play was not Rasmussen and even not Copp, even though he did a great job firing it home. The MVP was Christian Fischer.
Goalie can't stop what he can't see. And now some of you might think I'm referring to a screen that Christian Fischer put down.
Kinda.
Absolutely not. He decided that it was a prime example of the blowing snow in Michigan and just gave Logan Thompson a firsthand feel of it and put a good amount of snow directly into his face.
The old pocket sand.
Like, that is genuinely like one of the oldest tricks in the book. I am so surprised Vegas didn't swarm Fischer and tune him up for that one.
Genuinely speaking, though, I don't think that was the intent, and I think Vegas knew that.
Yes.
There was a lot of snow.
He's crashing the net for a screen or a rebound. We see that play 100 times a game. The only thing that made that different than a normal one is the pass came across instead of just being a shot from where he was at. Because correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure Fischer was even facing that way. And then all of a sudden it's on the back door. Copp's looking at a wide open top half of the net while Logan Thompson's trying to figure out where the hell the puck is.
And then jumping to the end of the game, Dylan Larkin scored his 22nd of the season, his second of the game, and that was thanks to Moritz Seider blocking a shot earlier on in that sequence. Kasper and Raymond assisting on that one. And Detroit takes the game over Vegas 5-2. Alex Lyon, another win there. Alex Lyon is, I think, tied for second in the NHL in save percentage right now. He's also top 10 in goals against average. He's sitting at 8th, but he's a .924 save percentage right now. He's tied with Connor Hellebuck and Jeremy Swayman.
It's not hard to explain the Red Wings' current hot streak, despite the team's, we'll call it whelming play.
Yeah.
When you look at the goaltender.
Alex Lyon is doing Alex Lyon things.
You want to know who's 7th?
Ilya Samsonov.
7th for goals against average or save percentage?
Save percentage.
7th. I'm trying to think of what would be the funniest possible option.
Alex Nedeljkovic.
It's Alex Nedeljkovic.
Wow.
Alex Nedeljkovic has a .918 save percentage with Pittsburgh.
Were we the problem all along?
Well, Detroit has been the problem for goalies a lot. And you know what? Everyone knew Ned needed a change of, he just wasn't mentally in the right space to utilize his talent. You get a fresh start. It's a reset button for goalies. The talent didn't disappear. I've said it a billion times about goalies. Their talent doesn't just disappear overnight, but that position is as much mental as it is physical. And so if things are off where you are, there's a point where you can't repair it. So I'm happy for the guy. Good for him. But yeah, Alex Lyon he's continued to be the difference maker. In games where Detroit has an average performance, they have a good chance of winning because of Alex Lyon. In games where Detroit has a poor performance, they have a chance of winning because of Alex Lyon. And in games where Detroit performs well in front of him, I don't want to say it's a guaranteed win, but it almost is because of Alex Lyon. Your baseline is so high when you have a goalie playing top 5, top 3 level in the league. That is, people would kill for that. And I've said this before, but GMs have to be calling Yzerman nonstop about him, and Yzerman is probably hanging up nonstop saying, why would I deal with this guy right now? He's the only reason why we were able to undo a god-awful December to the point where people aren't even thinking about it anymore.
Thank God the Red Wings had a really strong stretch of play in October and November, despite the goaltending. Otherwise, the decision to not play Lyon for as long as they did would be a hell of a talking point.
Yeah, the fact that they were scoring to the degree they did and were playing as well as they did, that's a good testament to they can still be an exceptionally good hockey team even without the goaltending, which is why we always say they have a lot of room ahead of them to improve. And they did that with, Reimer. He got lucky a couple of games, but then really fell off, and Husso just really not playing well.
And Lyon's doing it in, every sort of end of the spectrum. He's playing well when the Red Wings aren't giving up a lot of shots. It's really tough for goalies to mentally stay in those games. And he's also playing extremely well when the Red Wings do give up a lot of shots, which is mentally exhausting. Yeah. So really, he's been the shining star of the Red Wings over the past month. Lucas Raymond also had a quiet 2 good games since we last spoke, 2 assists in both of them. So he's motoring along too. January has been a complete 180 from December.
And like we mentioned before, Detroit's firmly in a playoff position. They have one more game now before the All-Star break. And I don't want to be dramatic because they've had such a great January that no matter what the result is on paper, they still have had an unreal month. But it's against the Ottawa Senators, and I'm sorry, they need to win this one.
3 days of rest going into this game as well. It's a statement game.
3 days of rest. You have 9 days off after this for the All-Star break. No, even though Detroit has been light years better than Ottawa in terms of the standings this year, Ottawa has had their number. Detroit has struggled against Ottawa in big games previously. Detroit needs to pull out this result. They just can't get pumped like they have been by Ottawa.
Hopefully the Toasters broke the curse.
Yeah, by beating the Belleville Senators.
Exactly. And as it turns out, the Belleville Senators, much like the Ottawa Senators, giant group of piss babies.
You know who they should start Ville Husso on Wednesday.
Yeah, shut out 2 different Senators teams in a week.
That would be funny.
Yeah.
That being said, absolutely the hell not. You're not taking Alex Lyon out of the net.
Well, they did send Husso down for a game for a conditioning stint. He might end up getting in. We'll see.
He might. I wouldn't.
Speaking of players coming in, Patrick Kane is getting close. They are deciding on whether to play him on Wednesday, and he won't unless he's at 100%. Otherwise, they're just going to take advantage of the All-Star break and let him fully rest up before coming back after that. So one more game before next episode. That's Wednesday, January 31st against the Ottawa Senators, and we'll be back with you on Thursday. A couple of points here, a couple topics I want to talk about before Winged Wheel Podcast Night with the Grand Rapids Griffins. First, Mo Seider and the season he's having. We've had this conversation recently, but Seider has been looked at in the public sphere in terms of his performance on the ice. And this is a selfish conversation for me because I'm pretty passionate about it. And I want to do a preamble here by saying this isn't a distrust of any model that says a Red Wings player is bad. And this isn't saying analytics are bad unless we say they're good or anything like that. But there have been specific instances of declarations that Seider's having a bad season and Lalonde should play him differently. And models have him, for example, the one I'm referring to has him as at the 50th percentile of, players in his position. Meanwhile, Ole Mata is sitting there in the high 90s, for example. And I see that and I say, this is why it's important to couple a good model with watching the game and building a full, complete understanding of what you're seeing. Is Mo Seider having the best season of his career? No. I think he's struggled at points this year, and I think he's done really well at points this year. Do these models, or this one, does it factor in the quality of the competition that he's playing at, which is like the hardest in the league, and the defensive zone starts he's getting and the situations he's being put in, like all of that, even if they label it as such, I just don't, I can't get to a place where I think that's all being appreciated, because if you watch the games, you'll understand Mo Seider's job is to keep this defense afloat. In a lot of games, that drowns out anything else that he can do. And yeah, you can play him on easier minutes if you want and more advantageous minutes and get him his power play time back. But then Detroit's going to start losing 8-2. Him and his partner are the only ones who can take these minutes. And so is he a 100th percentile defenseman? No, not this season. No. But is he middle of the 50th? No, God, no. He's so much better than that. It's not even, you can't criticize a Red Wings player. We do plenty of that on this show. You just have to watch the game to know that this guy he has an impossible task in front of him.
Evan, you see what's happening here?
No, I don't.
He's slowly morphing into us. It starts with screw analytics. I'm here for the eye test. No. Soon he's going to be advocating for violence, retribution.
Loves when guys take their helmets off before fights, which is extremely dangerous and reckless.
Ryan, have you ever heard of CTE? Frankly, I'm shocked you would carry that opinion. But on the other hand, rock star shit. So I see where you're coming from. But no, we're wearing on him, Evan. The battle is being won. To your point, though, you are absolutely correct. What I would question on the model is how much they factor in role and quality of competition, because I know Prashant has been a champion of bringing up data and showing data that shows not only are Walman and Seider as a pairing getting the toughest deployment of any pair in the NHL, it's not particularly close. They are running away from second place on that one, which is a sign of two things. One, obviously, Lalonde has an exceptional amount of trust in them, which is a testament to how good they are. It's also an indictment on the rest of the D-core, but
very true, both of those.
Yeah, we'll focus on the optimistic point here. And he hasn't had too many plays this year where I'm watching it going, what the hell are you doing? Bad defensemen have those all the time. I can point out to 6 a game minimum every time the Red Wings bottom 4 touches the ice. Those aren't there. Does he blow coverage every once in a while? Yeah, every defenseman in the league does. Does he control his gap poorly at times? Yeah, every defenseman in the league does. Nobody's perfect. It's just a matter of degrees. And you can tell Seider is still Seider way more often than you are seeing any mistakes from him.
And this is, I think, something that gets lost in the fray here. First of all, just to add on to what Brad said, I still don't think we are properly able to analytically look at and quantify what positive defensive play is. I think it's very heavily weighted towards offense. Brad wants to say right now because it's more important, but we're not going to have that fight today. I also think like this is the risk of looking at only a player card or only numbers and making a declaration that a player is good or a player is bad. First of all, it's never so black and white. Secondly, you have to be putting it together as a bigger picture that you're painting, like I was referring to before. Something I think about a lot is in Jack Hughes' early career, his player cards and his analytics were terrible. Like they said he was like first percentile, second percentile, like some of the worst hockey in the league if you were to believe it. You needed to watch Jack Hughes for a little while to know that this guy was eventually going to be a star. What have we said about defensemen on this show? To be an elite defenseman, it takes a long time to get there. Ask Buffalo fans how they felt about Rasmus Dahlin at various points in his development before he is where he is now. It takes time. It does take time. And Mo Seider started fast. He's doing exceptionally well. And you have to remember, he's still a kid. Like he is still so young. We're not even talking about his like output prime. He has athletic prime ahead of him. He has physical prime. His body is still getting stronger and better and faster. And if you're a defenseman, your brain does most of the work. Red Wings fans will know that from watching Nick Lidstrom. I just can't get behind, declarations that, yeah, Seider is bad this season. When you're like, he has a grown man's workload. He has a, Victor Hedman in his prime years, Drew Doughty in his prime years, whoever in their prime years workload right now, and he's still a kid.
Or maybe we take all these analytics as fact, we'll print them out, get a nice stack going, and we just accept the fact that Mo Seider's bad. So we should take all this paperwork into Steve Yzerman's office and get Claude Lemieux in there and have that contract signed right now.
Yeah, I'd like to be in that room for that Royal Rumble.
Like right now, we'll sign him at that rate. And then we'll re-examine where we're at in a year, okay?
Yeah, the funny thing is like this might actually be beneficial for a contract negotiation because when you do contracts, they don't only look at point totals. It's obviously a way more complex negotiation than that. And for a fact, Claude Lemieux is going to be bringing up the fact that Mo Seider is, playing all these tough minutes. But they're going to look at output and say, no, sorry, you're not going to get paid as much as this guy who's a number one D because he has that many more points or whatever. Like, it's going to be part of the conversation. And what the right answer is, I don't know, but they're going to have to figure it out.
It's one of those scenarios where if you bolster the second pairing and third pairing, I think that will definitely unlock a lot of Moritz Seider's output.
Yeah.
If they can, take one or two shifts off a period for somebody else to shoulder some of that load, that's going to be a night and day difference for how many minutes Seider and Walman can log and sort of their offensive production that they can eventually generate. Like right now, it's like, we can't put anybody else out there because if we do, we're going to lose.
Well, they do that sometimes because you can't ever get 100% matchups, which is why we've noticed Alex Lyon a lot.
Yeah, that's it. Like when we talk about the Red Wings have room to improve, we're not even talking about this. Red Wings are scoring at an exceptional rate. It's the defense. The defense is the bulk of what they can improve on any given game. Team defense, yeah, the forwards are part of it sometimes, yeah, but even as that improves, it's like, oh, those are the two best players in the league on the Edmonton Oilers. Yeah, that's going to be Mo all night. And he's going to get destroyed in the analytics because he's just doing his best to fend off McDavid and Draisaitl all night. But hey, Detroit actually held them off the score sheet for a good chunk of the game or was able to keep them at bay for a little. Like it's
the Red Wings having a true number two center would go a long way as well. But we don't need to open that can of worms.
Yeah, that is a can of worms. Speaking of centers, just a little more on Andrew Copp. A little bit of a redemption tour for him. He seems pissed off. He seems like he knows exactly how the season has gone for him, that it's not been to plan, to put it very, very lightly. I do think he's been playing better hockey lately. Brad, you made a good point. That Copp, Rasmussen, Fischer line has been exceptional. Probably has him in the right role to thrive and excel, and I think it's unlocked a lot of confidence for him too.
Yeah, if your defense outside of Seider and Walman can't defend worth a damn, it helps when you have a forward line who can really help in that department.
All right, that's enough of my my ranting, my in defense of Moritz Seider conversation. Again, like, you're allowed to criticize Red Wings players. That's not it at all. But I think the narrative is a little lost on Moritz Seider for those who don't watch him game in and game out. And this is just to say the dude is still an unreal defenseman and undoubtedly Detroit's number one defenseman. he's not a middle of the pack guy.
The best part about that for you was you got animated, so you kept like pointing and moving your arms, and the flapping of your sleeves was very entertaining.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, I have to get my Grand Rapids Flying Toasters jersey taken in. That's going to be the funniest dry cleaning bill I'll ever have. All right, let's jump into our time with Grand Rapids. First off, unreal city.
What a place.
We have been dying to do that for so long, and it has lived up to all expectations. Big shout out to all of you who gave us recommendations. Max Bultman, good friend of the show, gave us a ton of recommendations. And I need to go back just because I wasn't able to hit everywhere on the list that he gave me. Eastern Kill Distillery were kind enough to provide us with some incredibly, like dangerously good cocktails, and we brought home a couple of bottles as well. We have a bottle of bourbon and a bottle of rye. So visit Eastern Kill if you haven't. People from Grand Rapids know that. If you're visiting Grand Rapids, make sure to do so. But yeah, that was never mind what happened on the ice, off the ice, phenomenal weekend.
Hard to beat a place like that. You know, you never know. You've been working it up in your mind for so long. We've been talking about this trip we've been bullied to do this trip for years.
Yeah.
And we finally do it, and not only does it meet expectations, it blew them out of the water.
So let's talk about what happened on the ice, or even in the arena. It was amazing working with the Grand Rapids Griffins organization, and for all of you who came out to the Grand Rapids Griffins and Winged Wheel podcast night, the whole room was full. It was amazing to see those seats full. I hope you all enjoyed the live show. We were joined by Matt Luff and Dan Watson for 2 individual interviews on that, and they were fantastic. We've had Dan on the show before, so that wasn't a surprise. But Matt Luff, that was...
I will be honest, I don't think he knew what he was getting himself into, because I'm sure when he opened that door and saw that many people, he's like, what the hell is going on? So he started off with a little bit of, hockey answers, but we broke him down, got him talking about Jersey Jerry and hole-in-ones and getting him into golf, and he was a great guest to have. No spoilers, but we asked him who he most admires at the NHL and who he dislikes the most. The answer will shock you.
The dislikes one definitely came out of nowhere. I had, you're running through all the teams that he might have played. He spent a good amount of time with LA, so I'm definitely thinking someone on Anaheim or San Jose. And he spent a good chunk of the season last year with Detroit, and Slavkovsky seems like an answer that could have, although he did have a pretty good answer on that one.
Yeah.
But the answer was not at all what I was expecting.
I'll do my best to get that episode edited and ready for just as a bonus episode for audio. We'll see how we're able to work that one out. But we had a lot of fun doing the live show, and we hope you all enjoyed it as well. But let's talk about the games. First off, we were there on Friday night.
Hold on. We got to talk about the true event of the weekend. Evan's experience with $2 dogs and $2 beers.
I can't even believe I'm about to say this, but I showed restraint. It was,
You knew you had to fit through the arena doors the next day.
Short-term gain for long-term gain. Because if I could have hit double digits on the hot dogs, no problem. But I was like, that's a bad idea. You will die. So I stopped myself.
Evan saying this, like the whole reason he didn't do it wasn't because he wasn't already half cut walking into the arena.
The only reason I didn't put back a bunch of those dogs is because I was sitting up in the press box. I was very jealous when Evan sent that picture.
Yes, we got to the front of the line, and the lady asked us how many hot dogs we would want. Catherine's like, I'll have one. I was like, we'll get 4.
As many as you're legally allowed to give me.
Yes.
Yeah, when Crystal and I went up with the family originally, we asked for 4 hot dogs. We'll just all get one to start and then figure it out as it goes. Crystal and I ate 0 of those in the first round because Hank and Mika dummied all of them. And then when we went back for more, gone.
Yeah.
But
that's
so
Evan's fault.
So what I was going to spend on hot dogs, I made up for in $2 Labatt's.
So the first game that we were there, right before Wind Wheel podcast night, the Griffins won 3-0. Berggren factored in on all 3 goals, goal, assist, and then the empty netter at the end. Carter Mazur got in there with a goal and an assist. Marco Kasper factored into Soderblom, etc. But the note from that game was Ville Husso was down on a conditioning stint. Wasn't really tested with a lot of high quality chances, but he had the shutout. So credit to him. I talked to him after the game, and he said that he was really kind of getting antsy, waiting to get back into game shape. So I think it was important to just get him in game action. He's been kind of he said he was almost getting frustrated not being able to get out on the ice as he was working to recover. I asked him, I was like, well, you've had plenty of time to rest at home with the wife and the baby, though, and because he obviously has a new baby. He's like, yeah, I told my wife the other day that she probably shouldn't get used to me being home this much, but so he's looking to get back in game action soon. And we mentioned earlier that Detroit has Alex Lyon doing what he's doing now, and that's fantastic, but it'd be really great if he had the support of Ville Husso. So one, you don't wear out Alex Lyon, and two, if he tapers off, you have another strong goalie to lean on. So that was important. The second game, though, oh boy. So it was back-to-back against the Belleville Senators. The Griffins ended up winning 6-4. They were up 3-0 at one point. Right, sorry. The Flying Toasters were up 3-0 at one point, and that was... They were dominating play.
The barn was rocking.
Oh, my God. They were playing, and I thought, this is a team that's learning how to really kind of come together. Dan Watson said something as much that he really is thinking they're coming together as a team. And when their talent is firing, like, they were dominating Belleville. But I don't think Hutchinson was having the best game, and things got out of hand, and all of a sudden it was 4-3 Belleville. And you're like, what's going to happen here? And then in the third period, the Griffins put it back together. Zarnik scored. Soderblom scored the game winner. And then Berggren scored an empty netter. It all started with Marco Kasper. Dogged the puck behind the net. Did a really great job killing time while Belleville had their net pulled, and they were trying to tie the game. And Kasper was just phenomenal out there. He didn't actually factor in on the assist, but that was his credit to him. The puck stayed deep because of him. And then Berggren, who was battling with other Senators players all game. I think he two-handed one guy at one point because he laid a questionable hit on him, like mouthing off. He was really going at it. Ended up banking the empty net goal in off someone, and then hit the hardest celly for an empty net goal I have ever seen. Like,
right in front of us, too.
The Van Andel arena the roof blew off the place.
Yep.
And Berggren went buck wild. I'm like, that's the most animated I've seen him in my entire life.
It almost, we were talking about before the show, do this in Detroit, Jonatan. Like, He was beaking and chirping all game, being for lack of a better word, being a little asshole on the ice.
Yeah.
And obviously Belleville didn't like it. They were giving him shots all game. The back and forth was obvious. He did take a bad penalty on that two-hander as part of retaliation on the play. And yeah, it got to the point where when, after that empty netter, when he went to run the train up the bench, one of the Ottawa players came out and went, and just cross-checked him right in the middle of the ice.
Yeah. And then the scrum started, and people were going at it. There was like a little mini fight, a lot of pushing and shoving, gloves were dropped, etc. Berggren was in it, kind of went away towards the bench, came in and cross-checked someone, went back towards the bench, was apparently laughing. And at one point, one of the Ottawa players, and you said it correctly, Brad, they were being little piss babies by that point. That was the last time playing the Flying Toasters for the season. The Griffins weren't going to face the Senators anymore, and so they were mad that they were going to lose that game and not be able to get the retribution. At one point, a player was kicking away a Flying Toasters helmet. The scrum moved over for that, and how it worked out is Simon Edvinsson had Angus Crookshank. That's a real player. He was
born during the 1912 gold rush.
He's as tall as someone in the 1912. He's about Brad's size compared to Simon Edvinsson. They were squared up. Edvinsson was just holding him away like a little brother. Crookshank threw a punch, and Edvinsson went, "What are you doing?" He threw another punch, and Edvinsson went, "All right." Dropped his glove, walloped him in the head a couple times, threw him to the ice, skated off, threw his glove, got the crowd pumped up. I was like, what is happening right now?
What did they do with the Swedes? Where are the calm,
classic goons,
temperamental Swedes? Now I'm just seeing goons everywhere.
They were, again, we said Berggren was as pumped up as we've ever seen him. Edvinsson, that was as pumped up as you've ever seen him.
Yeah, at least with their time in Detroit, they've been very calm, very even-keeled, very level-headed. All of that. Or I should say, none of that in the game on Saturday.
You love to see it. If and when they both get their next window of opportunity with the Red Wings, I'd love to see that translate into the game all the time. That confidence they're oozing, the willingness to not back down from all the BS and keep themselves engaged in that. The Red Wings need that sort of energy and that sort of mindset with the team. I would love to see both of them carry that through.
Something else before I talk more about the Edvinsson thing in that game, Albert Johansson, man. Like that backhand goal that he had to protect the puck, even as a player overall, like we were saying, I was talking to Bob Kazer and Larry Figursky, which shout out to them. They were excellent to meet in person and work with. They had us on during the intermission as well, which was fantastic to do. No edit button, so that was a little bit nerve-wracking, but we made it through it. But, you know, the Red Wings defensive core is crowded, so we're not really talking about Albert Johansson a lot, but he's a guy who's, I still think, poised to make that team.
Yeah, he was solid. Outside of the goal, I wouldn't say he made a ton of plays that really stood out. And even on that goal, let's be honest, an NHL goalie probably stops that. But,
I'm giving him the credit, man, if he's going to fend off the defender like that.
Yeah, everything he did to get in position to take that backhand was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great sight to see. Grand Rapids defense as a whole was very, very impressive, the entire unit. So that's a phenomenal sign. Like, outside of Seider or Walman, you can make arguments that if you just, you know, swap the Red Wings to the Griffins, it wouldn't be that much of a drop-off. But
so
at least cheaper, if nothing else.
On Edvinsson's fight, a funny little story here is that I had actually come down from the press box. They were asking what players there were any interviews for after the game, and I just said, who's on the list, and there was no one there because there weren't really any other press there that game to cover. And I went, I'm not going to be the guy to pull these guys in, extend their weekends. They just are playing back to back. I'm like, we just had Luff and Watson on the live show. We have more interviews coming up with some guys here. So I was like, I don't really want to, whatever. It's okay. We don't need to talk to him. And then the fight happened, and I sprinted back upstairs. I went, we need to talk to Simon. You go to the room, and Simon was there waiting for it, like grin on his face, laughing because he knew what happened there. And man, when I tell you, Berggren was dancing around like a little shit disturber, just chanting "Rocky, Rocky." There's a clip of it too, like that. It's not in the dressing room. It's in this like outer area before the dressing room that the guys actually go to. And he's making Edvinsson laugh. And I asked Edvinsson about, a physical aspect to his game. And is it something he wants to leverage a little bit more, even though he's not that kind of player? And Berggren's like, oh yeah, right. And then kept chanting Rocky and stuff.
I love it.
It was so funny. Edvinsson had a blast with it too. He's like, yeah, the guy wanted to go. So I guess it's my first career fight. So.
That's crazy to me that that's his first career fight for a guy.
He didn't look out of place at all.
No.
Just tell him next time, drop both gloves.
Yeah, we're getting there. Anyhow, other takeaways from Grand Rapids, watching those games live, the players, any sightings, anyone who you were really keen on seeing, any opinions you took away from that?
I owe a huge apology to Marco Kasper.
Damn it, that was mine.
He was phenomenal. He didn't show up, and I guess maybe this is kind of the microcosm of Marco Kasper. He didn't show up on the score sheet a ton in those two games, but damn was he effective all over the ice. Transporting the puck, off the cycle, puck battles, defensive awareness. There was no holes in his game, and the skill was noticeable. You could see him making plays. You could see him making skill plays. You could see him consistently generate offense. Now, is this maybe he doesn't have the hockey IQ to take it all the way a bunch? Maybe. Did some bounces just not go his way? Absolutely. But he was very, very noticeable in both games.
Yeah, he's started to figure it out. Like the counting stats are starting to come. I think he was AHL Player of the Week last week. So it's great to see, and not to spoil too much, but Dan Watson was talking about how he's the hardest working guy on the team, and yeah, he's got to basically peel him off the ice after practice because he just won't stop working on his game. So I probably have had the biggest change in opinion on a player that I've had in a long time on Marco Kasper, now that I've seen him and I'm not kind of just, watching highlights and looking at counting stats. Was very, very impressed by Marco Kasper in his game. Even
that play on the empty net, like, in my opinion, you way undersold that. That puck was behind the goal line.
And it was him versus 3 or 4 guys.
Forever. Like, that was a substantial amount of time that he was down there pinning the puck, killing time, down low, and then eventually led to the goal. I'm actually surprised he didn't get an assist on it. I guess the Sens player must have just tapped it before Berggren picked it up, but that was like Darren Helm-esque, the shift.
Yeah, it was. It's not hard to see why they liked his game a lot. And Kasper, leading up to that draft, like, he was a prototypical Red Wing. And when the rumors started coming about who's interested in who's, Kasper is a prototypical Red Wing who's going to be picked by them too.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you see it. You hope the offense comes a little more regularly and a little more, naturally.
He's still so young too, right? Like, he's got a lot of time to develop that, to find the productivity and the consistency on the score sheet. So this weekend's turned me into a believer again.
Yeah, there's something about seeing the way that team has come together over the course of the Grand Rapids season. And again, Dan talked about that. That's part of the AHL experience. And I know we wanted Kasper to be the guy to kind of make some noise this offseason and coming into training camp for the Red Wings. But if he needed that runway to kind of find that consistency at the pro level, it's looking good for what he can do in Detroit in terms of being a high impact player.
100%. Mazer was also very noticeable. You can see why people think he's going to fill that, role that, let's say, like Bertuzzi filled for a while.
Mm-hmm.
He's not quick.
Don't tell Carter Mazer that.
No,
he's not slow, but he's not a burner. But you can see when the puck's on his stick in the O-zone, he finds the seams, he finds the gaps, whether that's with his body, with a pass, with a shot. That he made very few incorrect decisions with the puck on his stick.
He looked like a pro.
Yeah, he really does. You know how we always say hockey IQ is the be-all, end-all? There's no question Carter Mazer, that's his biggest skill.
All right, that was Grand Rapids Flying Toasters, Grand Rapids Griffins, Winged Wheel Podcast Night in Grand Rapids. We can't wait to come back and do it again. Lots more to say about them, but for now, let's jump into some NHL news. We're going to probably just hit 1 or 2 points here, but speaking of hits, Brendan Gallagher and his high hit on Pelech came across the middle of the ice, aimed at the head, elbow hit the head, extended up. Like, that was, to me, a textbook targeting the head, impact of the head. Pelech, who has a concussion history,
just came back from one, I believe.
Nailed him. And I saw that. I went, that's about as clear as it gets.
The internet has never been so united in a single thing in its life.
And for those who don't know the rules, if the Department of Player Safety offers you an in-person hearing, it doesn't matter whether or not you attend in person. If they offer you an in-person hearing, you can be suspended for more than 5 games. If it's a phone or virtual hearing, then you are limited to a 5-game maximum. That's just generally how it goes. And we were all expecting in-person hearing. And then at that point, it could be any suspension. You don't know how it's going to go. But I saw that hit and I went, oh, that's a bad one. I'm not talking 20 games. I think it should be, considering that it was intentional and it was malicious. But
a lot of people are talking there could be 2 digits involved in the suspension.
Then they don't offer him an in-person hearing.
And everyone acted calm and civilized from that moment forward.
Just like, again, the first point here is you can't be surprised. It's the Department of Player Safety, just terrible decisions through and through.
It was an empty net goal standing at the hash marks.
100%. They suspended him for 5 games in the end. So they gave him the most they could without offering him an in-person hearing. But that was just like, how do you not punish that more severely?
This is the one where you almost look at this literally, the Department of Player Safety. This is as blatant of an attempt to injure as we have seen in a very, very long time. Doesn't have the puck, doesn't think anything's coming, goes out of his way to elbow him in the head at high speed. Textbook. Like, if you were going to ever show a clip to future generations of this is how we explain attempt to injure, you show them that clip. 5 games is comical.
I would have showed them the David Perron clip.
What David Perron did was bad, and he deserved the suspension. And I think there were comparables that maybe he could argue he deserved 4 instead of 6, but it was a suspendable play. You guys have heard our opinions varied, though they might be on it, but they generally land in. You can understand why Perron felt he had to do something there. Larkin had been targeted in the past, whatever. Perron did something bad, got the right suspension for it, give or take. Why is it that Gallagher, were they going to talk about the amount of strides again? Are they going to give me a whole novella on the amount of strides that he took before he did this again? Like, it was malicious. It was malicious. He elbow extended upwards. He tried to hurt him, and he did.
On 32 Thoughts podcast today, Elliot was trying to explain it, and bless his heart. One of the points he brought up was because it was 5 games, it has something to do with it's not subject to an appeal to an arbitrator. Bettman's the only one who's eligible to appeal 5 or less.
It's not like he'd get an answer within a calendar year anyway.
Yeah, which, by the way, Perron still isn't settled. And he's been back for, what, a month now? But that may have factored into the decision. Like, he just didn't want to deal with the appeal. Like, which to me is, if that's true, the most cowardly chicken shit reason I've ever seen in my life for making a decision like that. I don't know. I genuinely am at a loss at this point why they do anything they do, and nobody's surprised. You know, the age-old joke of just spin the wheel. And Elliot tried explaining, you know, he picked a couple other comparables this year where, you know, it was 4 games here, 5 games there. And, you know, on one hand, I go, the numbers, those add up. The only problem here is this one's much worse.
If you have to game the way you offer suspensions because of the way your rules are set up, your rules are stupid and figure out a better way to do it. I just can't buy into the fact that they were trying to preserve a 5 game. Give them more. Like, give them a 10.
That's the whole, you know, if the Department of Player Safety wants to take a political approach to this, give them 10 games. Then people don't hate you. And then let the player appeal. Gary Bettman says, yeah, 10's good. I stand with these guys. Then it goes to an independent arbitrator. They say, no, that's a 5 based on all this precedence. Then it, you know, washes the NHL and the Department of Player Safety from having any blame to this. They're like, well, we thought it was a 10-game suspension. Independent arbitrator said no, be mad at them.
It's so counterintuitive. But the Department of Player Safety,
they're like, no, we'll be the hated ones.
Even if you have the most big brain explanation to this, which isn't just they're terrible at their jobs, George Peros is terrible at his job. At the end of the day, they are still creating results that end in worse player safety. It is, like you mentioned, Evan, it was the most unanimous we've seen the hockey discourse in a long time. The Vancouver Canucks shiny blue helmets were more divisive than this. It's the most unanimous discourse has been in hockey for a long time. Everyone can agree that elbows to the head don't have a place in the game. This would have been a dirty hit years ago too. Put the hammer down on this one. It's Brendan Gallagher. It's not Connor McDavid. What are you doing? It is just, the NHL is so content with having a terrible Department of Player Safety. That's a hit. Like, that's a hit that's going to end up in a lawsuit against the league, and, you know, the never-ending lawsuits against the league for CTE and hits to the head and whatever. Like, that one's going to be played in court. It's so stupid. It's such a needless play. And people are going to say, oh, a 5-game suspension is significant and he won't do it again. In my mind, not significant enough. Based on how I've seen other things penalized and suspended, like, that one was bad. It says that one is as bad as it gets. I struggle to find any silver lining in that play to excuse Gallagher's hit there.
That's why I don't get why they don't just make the suspensions longer. They make themselves look like the good guys. And then if an independent arbitrator thinks otherwise, then they're out of the blame game.
I get that the NHLPA has a union-based prerogative to minimize suspensions because all you're doing is minimize loss of salary, and that's always going to be their focus. But there's going to be a point where their players are going to say, hey, at some point you have to protect us. You do. I get that the money is going to be more of an incentive than anything else until they reach a breaking point. But there's no way that you have star players in the league looking at that play and thinking, yeah, I think that Gallagher getting 5 games is just fine.
Well, like every major sporting league, the best players have to be the ones who wave the biggest stick. If they want the Olympics and they want these sorts of things to change, the highest paid players, the most influential, have to be the most influential.
Drives me nuts, man.
It's wild. It literally is wild.
I didn't even bother commenting a lot on that one because I'm like, I'm so certain that that's bad enough where there's going to be no way they mess us up. And as usual, I'm an idiot and was proven wrong. So at least that's normal. Speaking of Vancouver's helmets, yeah or no to the metallic blue helmets?
Same thoughts. that I have with Vegas and LA. I really, truly love and appreciate the fact that they're trying something cool. Not for me, though.
Oh, man, I love it.
I'm a flying toaster guy, so bring me all the craziness.
I get that some of them don't work. Like, for example, Vegas's home jerseys, I get why it's better for them to be shiny gold. And, they won the cup wearing that, and that's more impactful for Vegas's identity. I do think their previous darks look better.
What if the Red Wings wore a shiny red helmet?
I would love a deep red metallic helmet. Love that.
Okay, that's one.
Brad?
No.
Oh,
I will say Vancouver's is the best of the bunch so far, but it's still not. Here's what I'll say. I like the shiny blue more than I like their matte black helmets.
Wow,
It's hot.
I like the matte black helmets a lot.
I think they're both great.
It looks like the finish got like ruined on them. It looks weird to me. It doesn't look bad. It looks like it's incomplete.
You know what I don't like are the raised. I thought I liked them at first, but I don't. Is the raised badges on the helmet. Like Carolina had them, and they kept popping off.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
I don't know if they still do it, but I know they tried it for a little bit there. And I think they might have had a problem with everything coming off.
As long as they're not doing what Pittsburgh and Philly tried with the images on the helmet in the outdoor game. Remember those things where the team logo was like the entire length of that helmet?
Yeah, it was weird.
Those were horrible.
At the end of the day, whatever you think about it, I do think it's cool that Vancouver's trying stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate the effort, even if it's not for me.
Yeah. And then just fitting this in here, there's going to be more conversation about this in coming episodes, especially as we head into the All-Star break. But we are now getting the steady stream of trade deadline rumors and things as we're not too far away from it. And Vatrano and Chychrun were reported as players that the Red Wings may be interested in. What that boils down to is good players on the market, Detroit asking about them. Yes, that makes a lot of sense. You've had even some small conversations already about Chychrun on this podcast. And we're going to cover those in depth as they come up, but they're just not surprising.
Yeah, no, it makes sense from what Detroit needs standpoint, but the contract situations don't.
All right, let's jump into overtime here. Overtime on this episode of the Winged Wheel Podcast is proudly brought to you by our Patreon supporters, patreon.com/Winged Wheel Podcast if you want to support the show. That's how we run Winged Wheel Podcast nights at the LCA and at the Grand Rapids Griffins. It's how we support the Jamie Daniels Foundation. It's how we produce shows like Expected by Whom, hosted by Prashant Iyer and Sean Shapiro, and lots more. You get benefits like access to our Winged Wheel Podcast exclusive Discord community. You're also automatically entered into all of our giveaways. For example, we're giving away 2 tickets to every Red Wings home game this season, the vast majority going directly to our Patreon supporters. Additionally, you get access to our overtime bonus episodes, which record right after these main ones. They're a good time where we let loose, have fun, and just we try less, and I think the content's actually better, believe it or not. Again, patreon.com/Winged Wheel Podcast if you want to support the Dub Club. Let's take some questions from our patrons. Youper in the D says, congrats on a great Winged Wheel Podcast weekend at Van Andel. Sounds like you had a great event. Some of us had to stay behind and take care of the LCA while we beat the Knights, so you're welcome. If you haven't already covered this, how do you think we're set for Ottawa? Do you think Baby Tkachuk will be as annoying as he has been in the past? And is Ottawa a good opportunity to put Kane in for the first time after an injury, or should we avoid feeding him to the Senators? Believe it when I say Brady Tkachuk is going to be at all-time high for antics against Detroit. This is a rivalry now, and he is going to be turned to 11.
Yeah, the Senators aren't a super physical team. They're a bunch of piss babies. So if you're worried about them running Patrick Kane through the end boards, that's not what they do. That is not the Ottawa Senators. They are a bunch of, they'll run around and be pests, and nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. But they're not the super physical team they pretend to be.
I don't know, man. They have Detroit's number in that respect.
Oh, they're a better team against Detroit the last couple of years. They've been winning the games, but in terms of physical battle, they're not that guy, pal.
Dead Aim says beating the defending champs with one of the better overall games played this year is huge. If they also beat Ottawa and go into the break still on a heater, what percentage do you guys give them to make the playoffs now? I might be tempting fate by saying this, but I am actively ignoring mid-April plans at the moment.
I forget which model it was, had the Red Wings as of today at 52%. I
believe that's Micah McCurdy's, the Hockey Viz model.
It's over 50%. I'm going with that one.
I'll be in the Masters in mid-April, so do with that information as you feel is required.
Well, then they're definitely going to make it because the only important things happen during the Masters schedule.
That is true.
Yeah, after the January they've had, again, a lot of this is hinging on things that could change, but the Red Wings have also been getting results even when they could be better. So I don't. The vibe I have is good right now. Connor Murphy says, will Dylan Larkin, 1, retire as a Red Wing, 2, play more than 1,000 games, and 3, score more than 1,000 points in his career? Ooh, that's a good question. For one, I do think he has retire as Red Wing written all over him to me.
Yeah, he's locked up until he's, 35? So I'll hedge and say yes on that one. I'll say, what was the second one? I know the 1,000 games, I'll say yes. 1,000 points, that might be a bit optimistic.
He has 483 through 627 games. I think I agree with you. I think yes, and no. Although, you never know how he might expand his scoring if the Red Wings become a much more talented team up top. Schmidt Tino says, hey guys, given how somehow the Wings have the 6th best offense in the league and we're still well in the playoff race, I do wonder, or better phrase, my take is the following. In a world where Augustin, Kosa, Edvinsson, Mazur/Lombardi, Danielson, and Sandin Pellikka, we can even talk Kasper and Berggren, turn out to be what we think they can be. We still need a top defender and 2 more elite scorers so we can say, yeah, this might be the team. I know a lot of ifs and whens in there, but in theory, the pieces might already be in place. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think you kind of answered your own question and came to a different conclusion. You said they need another top D and a couple more top scorers, which I agree with. So this is not the group. This is a good group. This is a very, very good start. And there's a whole lot of pieces that are solving a whole lot of problems. But yeah, they're still 1 to 2 big pieces away, in my opinion. So if you want to call this the foundation, yeah, this should work. But that's with a really damn big couple of ifs there.
That's a lot of things to go right.
Yeah.
I'm
even understanding, like, the one thing I probably should have specified, all those prospects aren't going to pan out. It's just not going to happen.
No.
But they have so many of them that even if we're talking half of that group, we're probably still okay.
Stay Fresh Cheesebag says, I sure wish I could have been in Grand Rapids this weekend. Glad everyone had a great time. Please expound upon our actual golden boy, the behemoth himself, the great gigantic Elmer Soderblom. Did you see enough to say he'll be an NHL regular? Stay Fresh Cheesebags.
He scored a huge goal in the second game, but otherwise I actually came away largely unimpressed with his weekend.
I agree. I think he got better in the second game. I think he had spurts where I was like, that's what you need to see from him all the time.
He also got knocked off the puck a lot. For a guy his size, man, that can't happen. We harped on Rasmussen for years about that till he figured it out. And his game changed as soon as he figured it out. Soderblom's got a lot of the same problems in his game that Rasmussen did in the early years. He's got to figure it out.
There's a play where the Griffins were basically all circling back for a breakout, and at no point did Soderblom come off the other opposing blue line, basically waiting to break in. That's fine enough if that's a set play or he was trying to hide. Like, that works from time to time. If your coach tells you to do it, you do it. But then the puck came his way on the entry, and he was just completely flat. Did not anticipate the play, did not read the play, was late behind the puck. The zone entry failed because of him, and that was just a microcosm of, I don't think he's doing enough to overcome any, skating or physical deficiencies that he has, which he shouldn't really have, especially the physical ones. And he's not doing himself a lot of favors thinking the game, the physical parts of the game. He had spurts where you saw the Soderblom that was on the Red Wings, but yeah, I'm becoming less and less confident that he's an everyday NHLer. It's not the end of the line for him by any means. He could turn things around, but he is lower than a lot of guys on the Red Wings prospect depth chart in terms of he should come up next, which was unfortunate. He was a guy that he earned a spot when the Red Wings weren't really prepared to give him one to start the season a little while back. And then, I don't know, he got injured. It was never able to get back on track. And it goes to show how fickle of a game being a prospect in the NHL is. Anyhow, let's wrap up this episode of the Wind Wheel Podcast. We're going to be back with you on Thursday to wrap up the Ottawa game and head into the All-Star break. And then over the All-Star break, we have a couple of really exciting interviews to release to you, which we're recording over the next couple of days. Can't wait for you all to hear that. And then if we get around to it, we'll edit the bonus episode, which is Grand Rapids Griffins Winged Wheel Podcast Night, that live show featuring Dan Watson and Matt Luff. But for now, let's wrap up this episode. Thank you all so very much for supporting the Winged Wheel Podcast. If you're a new listener, welcome to the show. And if you're a listener of old, it's a fun time to be a Red Wings fan. To all of our patrons, we could not do this without you, especially our name level supporters on Patreon. Arjun Shankar, Yves Bartels on behalf of the Sarah Grand Foundation, Aikfer, Samuel Soderholm, Icon, Brad's Lord and Savior Bradley Cleveland, Glenn Brabham, Croner's Left Knee, Ashley Van Conant, Sea Lion, Keenan O'Donohue, Yanni Burgers, Meals on Wheels, Matthew M. Rice, Admiral Matt S. at the Cheesebag Navy, Brad Shin Extension Baggins, Carl Brutanen Nanoluski, Carl Provy, Citizen High Five, Clip Clop Nene, Connor Scovey, Craig Kibble, Daddy Bettman Bucks, Denny's Gamer Girl, Derek Enstam, DJ Denton, Drop the Gloves, Eric Shun, God Creatives, Give Blood, Fight Probert, Hockeytown Love, Hockeytown Matt, Hassam Al Qassem, Jay Gollum, Jacob Turner, Joel Miranda, Jonathan Miller, Kaylin Wood, Marcus, Marlon Winchester, Matt K, Cannon Fodder to the Cheesebag Army, Matt McKay, Michael Edlund, R.A., Red Feather Desert Dogs, Ryan Hubbard, Scott Martin, Scree and Lube, Sprong 88 the Best, That's What I Appreciates About You, Walman's Elite Dancing D, Wing Commander DeBrinket, who's a new name level supporter, welcome to the Dub Club, Iserplan Stan, General Andy Bohan and the Cheesebag Army, Sam Bankson, A.B., Adam Rose, Axel, Sandy Pellica, Bellingham Acid Balls, Big Cheese, Brad Simmons, Brian Vasha, Chuck Buffchest, the Tarpless Goon, Commander Ben Barron, the Cheesebag Space Force, Connor Leighton, Corey Prida, Darren Fick, D-Boss Snip Show, Derek James, Dungeon Master of Puppets, Frank Stanley, Gene Sullivan, Griffey Boy, James Pridemore, Jeremiah Dobo, J.M. Rhapsody, John Evans, Derogatory, John Ingalls, Josh Yelton, Kevin McCracken, Quaz, Les Grossman's Ungodly Firestorm, Linda Hull, Maximilian, Melissa Erickson, Nora Seider, Ophelia, Reed, Steven, the Hodag, the Mexanadian, the Hat 123. These toasters are unreal. Winging it in San Diego, formerly AA Ron, and your second favorite patron. Thank you all so very much. Go Red Wings and go Flying Toasters.
Thanks for tuning in to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Be sure to check out wingedwheelpodcast.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll also find links to other ways to support the show, such as Patreon, official podcast apparel, and more. And don't forget to follow the show on Twitter at Winged Wheel Pod. And of course, the hosts at Brad Crisco, at Ryan Hanna WWP, and at Hockeytown Evan.